Doodle-doo-doo-doo. Hello everybody, welcome back to Xucaboa 5.0, 100% Vanilla Baby, episode number 11. We'll load up our last save. As always, I would like to say thank you, gracias, obrigado, to new supporters of the channel. We have Triple D Cities, Z Green Gaming, the Skyline Libertarian, and Cities for Noobs. All of these names right here you see, they are also content creators doing stuff with City Skylines. So check out the links in the description and watch the video for their link cards. And check them out, support the community. As always, I'm going to include photos of my cat Xuca, sporadically and without warning throughout this video. So here's one right now, just to start off. Here she is in a box. I hope you would like that. Alright, so before we begin work today, we're going to take a look at what we were doing last episode, just real quick. The more I'm looking at it, the more I'm liking it, especially this residential block here. This is really our first high-rise block, and I wouldn't call it high-rise, it's a mid-rise. But it came out really nice, just across from the Marcio Technology Institute here. We got the nice detailing all around this neighborhood, the backyard of 8x6 Eldercare, Neferu Sauna, Grottle's info booth. It's just it came out really nice. I'm very happy with it. Today we're going to work over in the Canal district, and I'm going to be doing a more high density. And this time, if you remember, I had designated this district to be high density European. So it's a different look, and it really requires the grid to be perfectly square so that the buildings line up. But even then, it can be tricky because the buildings, very much like in Europe in the real world, they don't line up that well. But I'm going to try to line them up as best I can here. I'm creating two squares of 5x5, two blocks that are 5x5, and then I'm going to create 4 blocks that are 4x4. And to do that, I'll just upgrade that centerpiece. And there we go. So we got 2 5x5 and 2 4x4. And I'm going to do some specific zoning to make the buildings I want appear in the way I want them. First, I'm going to line up these paths. You see I'm using park paths, and that creates a slope when I'm doing it. Trying to get it perfectly even here. I'll show you what happens when I upgrade it to a concrete path, which is terrain conforming. It goes right along the shape of the cliff, not very practical. So we're going to use the park paths to connect this lower neighborhood up to Canal Heights for pedestrians. And we'll put another one over here, heading over towards the Richard C. fire station. So same idea, sloped path, easy enough. Hopefully it's an appropriate grade so that it's wheelchair accessible. That's something this game really doesn't address, is accessibility for people who can't walk or ride a bike. So while, you know, we do the best we can in the game, but it's something to think about if you're designing a city in real life. So you see right now I've zoned these. I'm not sure if they're 2x3 or 3x2, but there's 2 different orientations. I had to figure out which is the right one, and if you do it right, then only that one building grows. So you see they connect perfectly with each other. They actually look quite majestic, very much like a palace almost. So now in the 4x4s, I'm doing the same thing. There's only one 2x2 that will grow. It's this corner building. I should say one corner 2x2, because there is a 2x2 that's not on a corner that will grow. But they all connect with each other and kind of look like. So now it looks like each of these blocks is a single building instead of separate buildings. They look like they're all connected, just like that. Here I'm just adjusting the node a bit on that street. Got a little bit out of whack. And now I'm going to do the same zoning over here, but I'm doing 4x4. And this is going to take a little bit of work because there's 2 different growables that will spawn from 4x4 high density European. You get this one that looks like a T, and then you have this other one that is a little bit shorter and wider in the back. Still kind of T-shaped, I guess, but it has balconies And that one looks, you see it on the corner there on the right. That one I think looks fine as a standalone building. This T building I think does not look as good as a standalone building. Maybe in very specific circumstances it could, but generally I think it needs to be attached to another one. So I'm going to use these standalone ones, I'll call them, as the either standing alone or on the end, so they kind of cap off the end. And then we'll do the same process over on this side. Yeah, this red roof T building is pretty cool, but kind of specific. And now I noticed that my cells were broken on that street, so I'm just going to realign the street to get them squared up again. Because I want these buildings to really be symmetrical. And I'm noticing now this piece of road is a little janky. So I'm going to just work on smoothing that out. I don't want to say I'm a student of Captain Obvious, because I'm not. But I do watch a lot of his videos, and I do really appreciate how you got to make your streets smooth. There's no need to use mods like Move It to smooth out streets if you just pay attention and kind of play with them just a little bit, make sure that everything comes out nice. You don't really need mods to do that. I can't even imagine, after playing vanilla so much now, using Move It just to adjust a street. I would just fix it and make it right in the first place. So, alright, looking at that block, see how it's all the same? That's kind of the look I'm going for. And I want at least these first ones, before the hill starts to climb, I want them to be the same. But then as the hill starts to climb, we'll try to get a little bit of variety. And I think that's perfect, that end piece with the balconies. We'll try some different shapes there, because I'm not sure what will spawn. I think that looks good there. See how it looks like they kind of just butt right into each other, which is nice. That one was too big. We'll just de-zone that. We're not going to zone anything there. But yeah, now this block is really turning out. Take care of the end here. This is going to be a little bit tricky because I've only got a 3x4 area to work with. So we'll try to get certain corner pieces in. I think if I do it in that orientation, you get these red roof ones. They're a little bit shorter. They look nice. When I tried to do the one block with just those, they actually didn't line up with themselves perfectly. Like those blocks I chose, they line up quite nicely. I wanted to use this because it's a little bit smaller, a little less royal looking, but it just doesn't line up with itself. It's broken. So we'll put them on the end there. This is looking pretty cool. A much different style than what we've seen so far. Yeah, as the sun rises, look at these buildings. Everything's looking quite nice. Now, a lot of the inspiration I've gotten from this for this build here came not just right now. I'm living in Europe, so you know I'm an American. I'm from New York City, but I live in Europe. I live in Portugal, and I recently went to the Museu de Lisboa, which is the Museum of Lisbon, and I was looking at this model in particular was incredible. It's like city skylines, but it was built in before 1926. You can pause the video if you want to read the details about it that I included from the museum text, but just getting an idea of how this city that I live in real life has developed over not just hundreds but thousands of years. It's a very ancient city. It predates the Romans by centuries. But in the more modern sense, that exhibit was really since the 1755 earthquake and after. The city was destroyed by an earthquake in 1755, and so a lot of it was rebuilt in a somewhat planned way. They kind of had a blank canvas in a large part of the center city. So I'm trying to just mimic certain aspects of that and incorporate them into this build. This is not supposed to be Lisbon or Lisboa. You know, this is Xucaboa. It's different, but just small things I'm trying to incorporate in here. And one of those things too at this museum, there was this great exhibit. I don't think it's a permanent exhibit, but it was hopefully long term. That was about the horticulture of the city of Lisbon, the urban agriculture, the growing of vegetable gardens from the medieval times to today. And we're going to incorporate a lot of that into this neighborhood. As best we can anyway, with vanilla assets. One of the things I miss about playing a modded game is just having access to so many more different props for detailing. It's not even, I mean, the buildings are great, the features you can do can be really interesting, but with vanilla, the game is a great game. You can do a lot. You just don't have a lot of props to work with, so you really have to get creative with what you have to make it appear as if it is something that it might not be. So right over in this area, we'll start our first garden, and I'll show this picture of a part of the exhibit there. These are two gardens actually within 15 minutes walking distance from my apartment that are just kind of like vegetable gardens right in the city, and it's all over the city really. It's hard to tell if it's public, if it's private, because it seems based on what I was reading that it's both, or combinations of all different types of stakeholders having these gardens just all over the place. Even looking out my window right now, I can see there's small gardens all over the place, and in a way that it almost seems like a public park. So these gardens here, we're gonna, I'm just using the flower beds, but we'll pretend they're onions or vegetables or something like that. Just make it just a little piece. And I think, sprinkling details like that in the neighborhood will give it a very practical vibe. Like I was saying, I can see stuff out of my back window. So this is the view outside my back window. There's some gardens. There's also some janky looking cliff going on right here. They didn't care about smooth terrain at all when they put in my building. And then you see there's some high rises going along the back. So anytime I'm playing this game and I'm like, oh wow, that's not very realistic looking, I just look outside my window and I'm like, oh wait, yeah, maybe reality is quite broken, and or maybe not broken, but not so uniform. Things can be very sporadic sometimes and still be real. But as you can see in this neighborhood, it's very, very organized, very symmetrical, not too much sporadic development going on. And that's really just because of the mechanics of high density European buildings in the vanilla game. They don't do too well on their own, in my opinion. I think they look kind of strange unless they're really lined up right. So I don't think I'm going to have a lot of building like this in the city, but in this canal district, I'm playing here. I'm learning, I'm experimenting, I'm seeing what's kind of cool. This park I've named for Triple D Cities. And if you didn't see their channel, go check it out. They're a small YouTuber like me. But this is going to be a nice little centerpiece here in this canal district that goes along the water's edge. But speaking of the water's edge, take a look at this water. Now, this is something that I think about a lot because of my history working in New York City. I am from New York City, and for 3 years I was the manager, more or less, of Pier 16 in Lower Manhattan, right by the Brooklyn Bridge. It's a maritime museum, South Street Seaport Museum. So I was involved in urbanism to a degree, as far as historic preservation goes. I really wasn't thinking about the urban aspect of it too much, but something I was involved in, a lot of meetings that really opened my eyes to how people plan this in real life, was the waterfront resiliency issues. New York City got flooded pretty badly in 2012 when Hurricane Sandy came through, and the city was ill prepared for it. And so a lot of talks have been had, and plans have been made, and infrastructure has been developed to kind of create barriers that will absorb floodwater. Because even just a little bit of floodwater in a place like New York City causes billions of damage, billions and billions of dollars of damage because of all the density. So what I'm doing here, I've used stones, those rectangular boulders. When you line them all up together, they actually kind of make a nice wall. And it's not just for looks, it actually functions as a wall too. The stones in the game, I think with the exception of the very, very small ones, work as they interact with the water, right? So if you put them in the water, they displace it, and then the water has to go somewhere else. So if you put the stones up against the wall like I did, the water can't go past it. And now I'm using vegetation. I don't know how much vegetation works in that way, but I think it does a little bit. But at the very least, this is aesthetic, to have the vegetation around this green barrier by the canal. And this will, in my mind, be a sponge that absorbs any small amount of floodwater that were to come down the river. Say there was a big rainstorm, the river got all full of water and started pouring into our high density district here. We don't want that. So what I'll also do is I'll add a bit of a breakwater here too, using rocks, using these huge boulders, which I usually don't put right in my city. And I guess this isn't right in my city, it's on the water, but we're just gonna kind of place them there. And as watch when I unpause, you see the water gets displaced for a moment. There's this big bulge where the water that was there has to go somewhere else. So we'll let it play out for a second and make sure the water settles down in the way we want, see how it's looking. But already you see just a little bit of influence has sent waters heading directly towards our city. And if you look, it's getting there, but it's all getting absorbed by that vegetation, which, again, I'm not sure if the vegetation there is what's doing it, but I'd like to believe it. That's my intention of having it there, so we'll just believe that. It's working perfectly, just as I imagined it should. So I think because there's still some water slipping past on the shore side, we'll add a couple more boulders here. And this will be our big breakwater. And that will push the water away from the canal mouth, the entrance to the canal. The river should flow past it, and then just a little bit of water should head back into the canal to get sucked up by our Andres, our water pumping station. So yeah, I think that worked out just the way I like it. Now let's get back to putting in some assets. I think we'll put in a tennis court, the European basketball court. I guess Europeans in this game don't play basketball, they just play tennis. But we'll name this, our second named object, we'll name this the Z Green Gaming Tennis Court. And just right there on the corner by the park, the trees that come with the tennis court are the same as the ones that were in the park, so I think it really adds to that sense of continuity. You can't tell where one ends and one begins. Next to Sports Monkey Ferry Stop, let's add a park cafe asset, but we'll name this the Skyline Libertarian Cafe. This is a tourist attraction. It's not a commercial building. It comes with the park's Park Life DLC. But you can place these next to a road, the same as I did with the plaza. You can even get them on a bit of an angle. They just have to be close enough to a road to work outside of a park district. So we'll finish planting some trees here. And maybe I think we will add another community garden in this area, right across from the cafe. Let's imagine that you order your brunch At the cafe, you're waiting for the ferry, you order some brunch, and the waiter goes right out across the street and grabs a tomato from the garden, puts it on your sandwich. I think that's a nice thought. I don't know if if it really happens like that, but you know, this is our ideal city, all right? So in our ideal city, the tomatoes are just picked fresh across the street when you order them at the cafe. The small bushes, when I put them in the garden, I'm kind of thinking like they're not bushes, they're like, I don't know, cabbage or something, but it's hard. You really just have the one tiny bush to work with. There's not a lot of crop-looking things. Here's a photo of Xuca dressed up, by the way. I told you they'd be coming without warning, and so there it was. She was being a crazy cat today. She was biting my hand. I took a video of it. Maybe I'll put it on the Xucaboa Instagram. Just doing some small detailing here with trees and bushes and things. Alright, so now we've got this last kind of section of the neighborhood that we'll start to work on, but we'll fill our trees in this way. We'll put in, I think we'll put in a Japanese garden. Maybe line it up right there. And this we'll name Cities for Noobs Garden. It is a Japanese garden in a European district, so in as much as we can demonstrate multiculturalism through assets, here we have you know, European architecture with a Japanese garden. I think that's a nice fusion, if you will. But here we'll fence off this hill so people don't trip and fall and get injured as they're walking down the street. Let me just see. I think this garden is terrain conforming, so you see that sand area that I'm not sure what it's called. I'm sure there's a proper name for it, but the area that in these types of gardens you see the very wise people raking all the time as a form of meditation. That I don't want to be on a slope because it will, I don't know, I feel like the sand would all kind of fall to the one side if it rained. Now we'll start putting in some more of those urban gardens. I'm going to try to put those in, not just in this European area, but throughout the city as I continue to build, in nooks and crannies. Because, you know, if I wasn't doing this, then I would just end up doing something like trees and bushes or benches and stuff. And that's kind of what I have done already. And there will be plenty of those as well. But I think creating these as gardens, and not just flower gardens, but for small crops, for herbs and vegetables and things like that, just around a small neighborhood, really is not just a nice touch, but a good idea maybe for the future development of cities in the real world. You know, we've really got to reimagine our infrastructure when it comes to feeding our population. So why not use some methods like this that are very local? They keep people from having to travel very far to a supermarket to get some basic stuff. You know, it's a good idea. In my humble, you know, non-expert opinion. If you disagree or if you have other thoughts on it, you know, say something in the comments. I think it's, at the very least, it's fascinating to me as a guy from New York that you could just go out and take some vegetables from a place. In New York, if someone came and touched my tomatoes, I'd be like, get the hell out of my freaking vegetable garden. I'm gonna kick you, you know. So here, it's not like that. You just, you know, if you want a vegetable, just go take a vegetable. We'll put some little bushes around here. These, I guess, I don't know if I'm gonna count those as agricultural stuff. Let's imagine they're herb bushes or something. wild herb bushes. But yeah, it's a shame there's just that one tiny bush you can work with. Here is the last photo I'll show from my trip to the museum. Going to this museum was awesome. It was in the Palacio Pimenta, which is in the north part of the city, a little bit closer to the university and the airport. And it was like City Skylines, the museum for Lisbon. So I just wanted to show that. They had this big mosaic of a topographical map of the city from 1911, I think it was. So I just want to show that off. I think it was really cool. It has nothing to do with my city specifically, but it's just very cool. Now we're getting towards the end of our episode, so we're just going to look around and make sure that there's nothing that looks glaringly out of place. We'll add a couple of bushes here to, in a random pattern, which I think actually looks quite nice when I'm looking at it from afar. In this district, a little bit strange if our city was naturally developing, but let's roll with it. Let's see. I mean, we still have to work on Canal Heights, so above this district might look a little strange right now. We'll try to make that merge a little bit more seamlessly. But I think the fact that this district is lower than everything around it also kind of helps create like a natural separation, why this might be different architecturally and visually than other areas in our city. So we'll take we'll give it a try. I think we should add some lights in this park for safety purposes. But something too I'm starting to think about is I don't want to have too many lights everywhere, because light pollution is also a thing. I want people to be able to go down to the waterfront and see the stars. Not to mention the ecological damage that the light pollution can do to certain species of birds and insects and things like that. But this is just a game, so I won't take it too seriously in that regard. It's just something to think about. I want there to be light, but not too much light. I want there to be light in all the right places. And I think that does it. I think that's looking pretty good so far. I see some of my 4x4 buildings are leveling up and changing their appearance, which I didn't expect. They're switching from the T to the standalone or vice versa. So like you see on the corner there, now I've got two standalones. I don't know what happened there, but we'll roll with it for now. And yeah, really just looking at this neighborhood as the sun rises, I'm very happy with how this turned out. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. If you have thoughts on the European high density zoning, it's challenging in vanilla. It is very challenging to make it look right in vanilla, and it doesn't have. I don't think it has to be all perfectly symmetrical like I've done here, or the same repeating style, but it does make it's a specific look, and it's what I chose to go with here. So we'll see. We'll give this a quick save. Save as episode 11, and I think we'll head to the cinematics. I am very pleased to end this episode by saying we have surpassed the 50 subscriber personal milestone, I guess, if you will, for the Xucaboa YouTube channel. Thank you everybody who's watching this. Like I said, I'm having a lot of fun doing this and experimenting and learning and sharing it with people, especially in the city's vanilla Facebook group. If you're on Facebook and you haven't checked it out, be sure to, because it's a great community. A lot more personal feeling than some of the others, in my opinion. But check it out. There's a lot of content out there, a lot of content creators, and I think we all kind of have the same mentality. Creating. This is like our art. We're creating something. So again, thank you for watching Xucaboa 5.0, 100% Vanilla Baby, episode number 11. I will see you next time.